Urgent, Luka Dončić makes an unexpected decision, stay until the end to find out everything that happened. But before starting the video, leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any important news from the Lakers. The City of Angels welcomed its newest basketball icon with open arms. Luka Dončić, the dynamic Slovenian star, had just arrived in Los Angeles, not only with his unmatched skills but also with a renewed sense of purpose. The Lakers had made a blockbuster move to bring him from Dallas, and with that came expectations, immense ones. Yet, beyond the courtside glamour and bright lights of Crypto.com arena, Luka had a personal mission: to get in the best shape of his life. It wasn't just a goal, it was a necessity. Luka's recent past had been plagued by a nagging issue that no amount of talent could fully mask: physical inconsistency. During his final weeks with the Mavericks, Doncic suffered a calf strain that kept him sidelined for nearly 2 months. Ironically, the trade to Los Angeles was finalized while he was still recovering from that very injury. For some fans, the timing of the move raised questions. Why let go of a player who, despite carrying some extra weight, led the entire league in points per game during the 2023-24 season? The answer, at least according to Mavericks executive Nico Harrison, lay partly in Luka's fitness. Maintaining peak condition is critical in the NBA, where the physical toll of an 82-game season, plus playoffs, is brutal. Even Luka couldn't ignore the truth any longer. He understood that being out of shape invited injuries, drained his energy and dulled his edge. And now, as he prepared for his first full season as a Laker, he seemed more determined than ever to change the narrative. This time he wasn't alone. At home, his wife Anna Maria had taken on an unexpected role in his transformation. More than just emotional support, she had become an active partner in his wellness journey. Recently, she posted a photo on social media: a plate of steamed vegetables, grilled lean protein and whole grains, a far cry from the greasy fast food Luka used to indulge in. The message was clear: the Doncic household was serious about health. During his off-season downtime, Luka could have chosen relaxation and indulgence. Instead, he opted for discipline. Even during vacation, he was spotted doing cardio drills, strength training, and mobility exercises. A year ago, he missed training camp due to a minor injury he sustained in the summer. That mistake wouldn't be repeated. His dedication caught the attention of the Lakers organization as well. They had invested heavily in him, and his commitment reinforced their belief that he was the right cornerstone to build around. His transformation wasn't just about slimming down, it was about developing the durability required to anchor a championship team. Anna Maria's involvement extended beyond just food. She reportedly helped Luka build a new routine, encouraging better sleep patterns, stretching habits, and even mindfulness exercises to reduce stress. Together, they were turning lifestyle change into a shared mission. For Luka, this off-season wasn't just about getting ready for the court, it was about becoming a better version of himself, on and off it. And while the Los Angeles sun shone brightly, it wasn't nearly as blinding as the fire Luka now carried inside. Back in Dallas, Luka Dončić had grown into a global phenomenon. He was beloved, unstoppable at times, and the heartbeat of the Mavericks franchise. But even legends have turning points, and for Luka, that turning point came cloaked in pain. A simple misstep during a late-season game led to a strained calf, an injury that, while not catastrophic, was enough to derail his rhythm and leave him sidelined for nearly 2 months. For a competitor like Luka, sitting out wasn't just frustrating, it was humbling. Watching from the bench, powerless to help his team, gave him time to think. Not just about recovery but about what came next. As rumors swirled and front offices made plans, Luka's name began circulating in trade discussions. Still not fully recovered, he received the news: he was headed to Los Angeles. A fresh chapter. A new coast. A bigger spotlight. The trade shocked the league and perhaps even Luka himself. But under the surface, it was more than just a business move. The Mavericks front office, particularly GM Nico Harrison, hinted that Luka's long-term health and physical commitment had factored into their decision. They knew his brilliance, but they also saw the toll his body was beginning to take. Fans in Dallas were divided. Some mourned the loss of their superstar, while others understood that changes were inevitable. After all, Luka, despite leading the league in scoring, had faced consistent criticism for playing overweight. And while he defied those criticisms with performance, his vulnerability to injuries was impossible to ignore. Now in Los Angeles, Luka viewed the change not as an exile, but as an opportunity. "I'm not just switching teams," he reportedly told a friend. "I'm switching mindsets." With the city behind him and a new coaching staff eager to unlock his full potential, Luka began the process of reinvention. Step by step, weight by weight, rep by rep, he worked. Each gym session became more than just conditioning, it was therapy. Each drop of sweat marked a new beginning. Still, change isn't easy. Discipline doesn't grow overnight. There were mornings he didn't want to train. There were days he missed the familiar halls of the American Airlines Center, and the comfort of a city that had watched him grow from prodigy to icon. But Los Angeles didn't need nostalgia, it needed performance. And Luka was determined to deliver. Ana Maria played an instrumental role in this transformation. She became his unofficial wellness coach, balancing encouragement with accountability. Their kitchen no longer smelled of takeout containers and greasy snacks. Instead, it echoed with the sizzle of grilled vegetables, the aroma of herbal teas, and the quiet satisfaction of discipline taking root. Even his recovery approach evolved. Instead of rushing back from his calf injury, he followed a structured rehab plan, including aquatic therapy, yoga, and daily massages. He began working with a mobility coach who focused on joint health and injury prevention, something he had neglected in the past. The couple's home became more than a sanctuary, it turned into a performance center. Despite being months away from the opening tip-off, Luka's transformation was already becoming the talk of training circles. Lakers insiders noticed a leaner, more agile version of Doncic showing up to optional summer workouts. Some players take time to adjust after a major trade. Luka was already embracing the purple and gold with the hunger of a rookie. He knew this was more than just about proving people wrong, it was about proving himself right. That he could evolve. That he could be resilient. That he could lead again, not just in points but in presence. Redemption stories don't start on game night. They begin in the quiet moments, when no one is watching and you choose the hard path anyway. Luka had chosen his. Basketball is a game of split seconds and long seasons. It demands not just skill but stamina, an unrelenting commitment to the grind. No matter how gifted a player may be, the physical toll of competing at the highest level can crack even the most elite. Luka Dončić had always relied on his natural brilliance to carry him through games. His court vision, deceptive quickness, and offensive genius had masked a truth that now stared him in the face. Greatness, to last, needed more than talent. It needed conditioning, endurance, durability. He had learned that the hard way. His body, once an afterthought in the conversation, had become the center of every discussion. And not without reason. Luka's frame, larger than most guards, had always carried an extra 5 to 10 pounds that critics never failed to point out. Yet somehow he had still dominated. Points, assists, game winners, he did it all. But in a league where margins are razor thin and games come down to fourth quarter runs, every ounce matters. Luka knew now that being slightly out of shape didn't just affect how he looked. It affected how he moved, how he recovered, how long he could keep pushing at an elite level. Since arriving in Los Angeles, his mindset had shifted completely. No longer was fitness just about getting through games. It had become about extending his prime, protecting his future, and setting an example. He had already slimmed down noticeably. The difference wasn't just visible in photos, it was apparent in his movement, his energy, and even his attitude. His training routine was relentless. Mornings began with conditioning work, hill sprints, treadmill intervals, and resistance sleds. By noon he was deep into skill drills, sharpening footwork and refining his jumper. Afternoons were reserved for recovery. Ice baths, cupping therapy, stretching. Evenings? Film study and strategy sessions with the new coaching staff. He had become a man obsessed not with the spotlight, but with the preparation behind it. His transformation became a point of pride within the Lakers organization. Coaches and teammates noticed the difference. This wasn't just a superstar showing up. This was a leader setting the tone. And it wasn't just Luka putting in the work. The entire team had felt the weight of last season's early exit. It wasn't just Luka who had looked fatigued in those final playoff moments. The Lakers as a whole had struggled to keep pace late in games. Conditioning or the lack thereof had cost them. And everyone, from LeBron to the last man on the bench, knew it. That awareness was now driving a team-wide reset. Players began working out together even during the offseason. Informal scrimmages popped up across the city. A sense of urgency lingered over every practice session. The message was unspoken but understood. If they wanted to win, being in shape was not optional. Luka found himself pushing others, encouraging younger teammates, and embracing a new identity, not just as the team's scorer but as its tone setter. The irony wasn't lost on him. Just months earlier, his weight was part of the reason he had been traded. Now, his commitment to fitness was inspiring a cultural shift inside one of the NBA's most storied franchises. Even Anna Maria noticed it. "He's different now," she shared with a close friend. "He doesn't just want to play better, he wants to be better. For himself. For us." In every rep, in every meal choice, in every hour of sleep he used to skip but now guarded like gold, Luka was building something lasting. The weight he once carried, both physically and metaphorically, was slowly lifting. Not because it got easier, but because he got stronger. The air inside the Target Center was heavy with tension. Game 4 of the Western Conference semifinals had reached its final quarter, and every possession felt like a war. The Lakers had come out swinging, building an early lead behind Luka Dončic's brilliance and the veteran poise of LeBron James. But as the minutes ticked by, something else became painfully clear. Fatigue was setting in fast. Coach JJ Redick, still finding his voice in his first playoff series as a head coach, made a bold decision, one that would be debated for weeks. He kept the same 5 players on the court for the entire second half. No substitutions. No breathers. Just Luka, LeBron, Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, and Dorian Finney-Smith locked into battle. At first it worked. The Lakers moved in sync, finding lanes, defending fiercely, and executing with purpose. Luka orchestrated the offense like a conductor, making difficult passes look easy. The team pushed ahead, and the bench cheered as the scoreboard reflected their surge. But basketball, like any battle, punishes exhaustion. Midway through the fourth, the shots began to fall short. Defensive rotations slowed. Feet dragged. The Wolves, sensing weakness, attacked with fresh legs and relentless energy. The momentum shifted. Minnesota clawed back, possession by possession, until finally they seized the lead and never looked back. The Lakers had run out of gas. After the loss, criticism poured in. Why didn't Redick rotate? Why push players to their limits with the series hanging in the balance? But beneath the backlash was a truth no one could ignore. The Lakers weren't conditioned to endure. It wasn't about effort. It was about preparation. In the post-game press conference, Redick didn't deflect. He faced the storm directly. "I trusted those 5 guys," he said, his voice measured but firm. "And I still do. But moving forward, we're going to make sure this entire team is physically ready to play at that level for as long as it takes. No more short bursts. We're training for the long haul." That statement marked the beginning of an internal transformation. Luka, already in the midst of his personal fitness revolution, saw an opening, an opportunity to lead not just by scoring but by setting a new standard. He knew what it felt like to carry the burden of a team. He also knew what it felt like when his body betrayed him in moments that mattered most. So he began pulling others along. Team workouts became mandatory, but they didn't feel like chores. Luka brought energy, cracked jokes, and challenged teammates in drills. Austin Reeves, always a hard worker, started doing morning shooting sessions with Luka before official practice even began. Rui and Dorian added core stability training to their routines. Even LeBron, ever the professional, increased his recovery sessions to match the younger guys' pace. The team also hired a performance nutritionist, who completely revamped the locker room menu. Gone were the trays of fried food and sugar-loaded drinks. In their place, hydration stations, protein-rich meals, and nutrient-dense snacks. The front office took note too. Within weeks, a job listing appeared for a new strength and conditioning coach. The message was clear. Fitness wasn't just Luka's project, it was the organization's new foundation. And through it all, Luka remained at the center, not by force but by example. His voice grew louder in the film room. He challenged teammates during scrimmages. He began holding players-only meetings, not to call anyone out but to pull everyone in. Because Luka knew something no stat sheet could measure. Championship teams aren't built in the playoffs. They're forged in the off-seasons, in the quiet hours when no one's watching. He had been the guy who ran out of steam. He'd watched games slip away while he caught his breath. That was no longer acceptable, not for him and not for the Lakers. If they were going to rise, it had to be together. Stronger, faster, fitter. From now on, 5 players wouldn't just survive the storm. They would become it. By the end of June, something strange was happening at the Lakers' training facility in El Segundo. Reporters who came to cover routine off-season activities left with raised eyebrows. Assistant coaches walked around with clipboards and stopwatches. Players were drenched in sweat hours before official practice even started. The gym lights stayed on late into the night. It felt more like October than summer. At the center of it all, of course, was Luka Dončić. His transformation had reached a point where even casual observers noticed the difference. His face was leaner, his frame more sculpted. He moved with purpose, with a lightness that hadn't been seen since his early EuroLeague days. But more importantly, his demeanor had shifted. There was less flash, more fire. Less talking, more leading. And the team was following. The Lakers, historically a franchise of superstars and big names, had occasionally struggled to foster a unified identity beyond star power. Now, under Redick's direction, and with Luka as the emotional engine, the Lakers were becoming something else entirely. A unit built on accountability, conditioning, and focus. Practices began earlier and ended later. Players spent more time in the weight room. Sessions in the film room became more interactive, with Luka breaking down plays and offering insight not just about offense, but defensive positioning, rebounding angles, and transition strategy. His understanding of the game had never been in doubt, but now he was using that knowledge to uplift others, not just himself. You can tell he's not trying to be the leader anymore, Austin Reeves said in a summer interview. He is the leader. No one gave him that title. He earned it. But leadership doesn't just echo in locker rooms, it reverberates throughout a franchise. Jeannie Buss, the team's owner, took note of the shift in tone. So did Rob Pelinka, the general manager, who began having regular sit-downs with Redick and Luka to discuss roster construction, game strategy, and even locker room dynamics. The idea of Luka being a long-term centerpiece in Los Angeles no longer seemed like a bold bet. It felt like a smart, stabilizing choice. Off the court, Luka's new habits began shaping public perception. Tabloid photos showed him jogging in Santa Monica at sunrise. He appeared at youth clinics slimmer and more energized, preaching the importance of preparation over performance. Ana Maria became a silent symbol of this evolution, often seen by his side, calm and steady, helping him stay focused. Fans noticed. Social media flipped its narrative. Where once there were memes about his conditioning, now there were montages of his hustle plays, training footage, and community involvement. Hashtags like #FocusledLuka and #LakersLockedIn began trending after every public appearance. More than just a rebranding, it felt like redemption in real time. Still, there were challenges ahead. The roster wasn't perfect. Injuries loomed as they always do in an 82-game season. And the West was as competitive as ever. But for the first time in years, the Lakers felt like more than just a collection of stars. They felt like a team. And that change, more than any new signing or system tweak, started with Luka choosing to change himself. It's often said that culture is set by your best player. If that's true, the Lakers were finally building something sustainable. Not just a run for the playoffs, but the foundation of a dynasty. A shift had occurred, quiet, deliberate, undeniable. From Hollywood flash to hard-earned grit. From headlines to habits. And at the center of that shift stood Luka Dončić, not just as a savior but as a standard. As July melted into August, the countdown to the new season began in earnest. Media Day was officially on the horizon, and with it, the start of real expectations. Los Angeles, a city that never sleeps on basketball, was already buzzing with speculation. Could this be the year? The question loomed over every workout, every practice drill, every moment of silence between whistles. The Lakers weren't just rebuilding, they were recalibrating. And for once, the narrative didn't center around LeBron's age or potential free agent moves. It centered around Luka Dončić. And with that came pressure, more than he had ever felt in Dallas. In Texas, Luka was the beloved prodigy, the face of a franchise that lived and died by his shot. But in Los Angeles, the expectations were different. The championship banners above the court weren't just decorations, they were demands. And every player, no matter how talented, had to earn their place in that legacy. Luka felt that weight every time he stepped into the training facility. But unlike in previous years, it didn't wear him down. It fueled him. He started arriving an hour before the rest of the team, often already warmed up before the coaches had even entered the gym. He stayed late, working with assistant coaches on lateral quickness drills and refining his mid-range game, one area he had identified as needing polish. "Before, I used to just rely on instincts," Luka confessed during a private media roundtable. "Now I'm building systems for myself. Physically, mentally. Every part of my game needs to be intentional." The Lakers staff noticed. Not just the coaches but the trainers, analysts, and even the public relations team. They saw a player who had moved beyond just being good. He was becoming professional in the purest sense of the word. Intentional, focused, prepared. But pressure doesn't only come from the outside. There were moments, even in the stillness of early morning, when Luka would stare at the hardwood, shoulders heavy, not from fatigue but from expectation. He knew how quickly the narrative could flip. One bad month, one untimely injury, and all the goodwill could vanish. That's where Anna Maria came in. More than just a supportive partner, she had become his compass. She ensured his routines were sustainable, helped him manage mental strain, and reminded him when to rest. She kept the balance between Luka the athlete and Luka the human being. "She's the reason I haven't lost myself in all this," he once admitted quietly to a trainer. Their bond deepened during this stretch. Nights were spent cooking together, experimenting with plant-based meals and anti-inflammatory ingredients. They took walks along the Pacific, far from the cameras, where Luka could breathe, could just be. And it mattered. Because while the game demands strength, it's often peace that gives an athlete longevity. And Luka was discovering both. Inside the team, the culture continued to sharpen. Role players stepped up. Young talents pushed veterans in drills. Redick, now fully immersed in his role, began adding layers to the Lakers' playbook that relied heavily on Luka's versatility, positionless sets, motion offense built around reads rather than set plays. Luka wasn't just a star. He was the system. But with that central role came responsibility and scrutiny. Every slip would be magnified. Every decision on the court would be dissected. He would be judged not just on how many points he scored, but on how far he could lead the team in May and June. The pressure was real. But so was the purpose. And day by day, Luka was learning to carry both. Not with fear. Not with arrogance. But with quiet conviction. He knew the road ahead was long. There would be setbacks, slumps, injuries, maybe even doubt. But the version of Luka Dončić that now stood at center court was no longer just playing to win games. He was playing to redefine what winning meant. Not just for himself, but for the city that now called him its own. With training camp only weeks away, the Lakers had entered the critical stretch where momentum and morale had to be carefully managed. Every team in the league was watching, and while optimism surrounded the new-look Lakers, that fragile confidence would soon face its first true test. And it came in the form of an old enemy: injury. During a routine scrimmage, high-tempo, full court, no referees, Luka drove to the basket on a fast break, absorbed light contact midair, and came down awkwardly on his right ankle. It wasn't catastrophic, not the type of injury that echoes across social media with hashtags and headlines. But it was enough to halt the rhythm. He sat out the rest of the session. Ice was applied immediately. A cautious silence fell over the facility. A scan revealed it was a mild sprain, nothing long-term, but enough to sideline him for at least 2 weeks. Redick and the medical staff agreed. No risks, no rushing. But even a minor pause felt like a setback. Luka was frustrated. He had done everything right, ate clean, trained harder, recovered smarter. This wasn't supposed to happen. He sat in the weight room alone after the diagnosis, towel draped over his head, the echoes of sneakers squeaking on the court outside. For a moment he questioned everything. But then came Anna Maria. She didn't offer false reassurance. She didn't sugarcoat. She simply sat beside him, hand on his knee, and reminded him, progress isn't linear. Injuries don't erase the work, she said. They just show you how much more it matters. Luka nodded, slowly, thoughtfully. And then he stood up and walked, limping slightly, toward the training staff. The next morning he was the first to arrive at the facility. Though unable to participate in drills, Luka refused to sit idle. He turned his rehab into a new routine. Balance work, upper body strength, film breakdown. He even began mentoring younger players one-on-one during practice, offering tactical tips and psychological advice. Sometimes, he told rookie Terrence Mason, you get better when you're not even on the court. That mindset shifted the narrative internally. Instead of seeing Luka's injury as a blow, the team began viewing it as a test of their depth. Reeves took on more playmaking responsibilities. Rui embraced a leadership role in defensive sets. Even Finney-Smith grew more vocal in huddles. And Luka? He coached from the sidelines like a man possessed, not barking but guiding. Directing traffic, signaling plays, reading opponents in real time and relaying it in timeouts. Redick gave him a nickname, the General. Off the court, Luka also doubled down on his presence. He visited staff members behind the scenes, equipment managers, kitchen workers, interns. He made time for fans waiting outside, posing for photos, answering questions, cracking jokes. It was subtle but meaningful. He was no longer just in the Lakers. He was of the Lakers. When his ankle finally healed and he was cleared to return to full court activity, the energy was different. It wasn't just relief, it was respect. His teammates greeted him not like a savior returning, but like a soldier rejoining the front lines. And Luka? He didn't miss a beat. If anything, he came back sharper, stronger, more certain of who he was and what he stood for. He had entered the summer trying to change his body. Now, as October neared, it was clear. His mind had evolved too. The brief setback hadn't derailed his progress. It had defined it. The final week before opening night arrived with a chill in the Los Angeles air, not from weather but from anticipation. The preseason had concluded. The rotations were set. The media frenzy had begun. Billboards featuring Luka Dončić now towered over Sunset Boulevard. The new face of the Lakers wasn't just being promoted. He was being trusted. It was finally time. Luka stood at the center of the Lakers training court on a quiet Monday morning. The arena was empty, silent but alive with memory. He took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. This was no longer a dream. It was now the standard he had helped build. Training camp had passed like a storm. Every day had tested the team's resilience, chemistry, and physical endurance. Luka had emerged not only as the focal point of the offense but as the emotional core of the locker room. Redick leaned on him. Teammates rallied behind him. The city started believing in him. But for Luka, belief had never been the endgame. He wanted proof. And proof would come in the form of 48-minute battles across 82 games, against teams stacked with shooters, veterans, rising stars. Every arena would bring noise. Every mistake would be magnified. Every success would be measured not by applause but by consistency. Yet he felt ready. He had rebuilt more than his conditioning. He had reconstructed his priorities, his identity. Even his silence had meaning now. Luka's not chasing highlights, LeBron had said during a recent interview. He's chasing greatness. And he's doing it the right way. That sentiment echoed across the franchise. Jeannie Buss praised his maturity. Pelinka compared his focus to that of Kobe's early seasons. The city, once skeptical of his weight, his durability, his fit, now wore his jersey with pride. Anna Maria, too, had taken a step into the spotlight. A respected figure in her own right, she had quietly become a symbol of balance in the whirlwind of fame. On game nights, she sat just behind the bench, not as a spectator but as a pillar. And she knew this moment meant more than just basketball. Because this wasn't Luka's redemption story. It was his reinvention. He had arrived in Los Angeles mid-recovery, out of shape, doubted by many. And now, he was leading a franchise built on legends, Magic, Kareem, Kobe, into a new era with his own voice, his own style, his own purpose. As tip-off drew near for the season opener against the Denver Nuggets, Luka gathered his teammates in the tunnel. His message was simple. We're not proving anything to them. We're proving it to ourselves. All the work, all the pain, all the sacrifice, this is where it shows up. Let's be everything we said we would be. The doors opened. The lights blazed. The roar of the crowd greeted them like thunder. Luka stepped onto the court first, not just as the starting guard, not just as the leader of the Lakers, but as a man who had chosen transformation over comfort, discipline over doubt, purpose over pressure. The journey was far from over. There would be slumps, criticisms, and losses. But as he took that first dribble under the bright lights of Crypto.com Arena, there was no hesitation in his step. Just clarity. This was no longer Luka Dončić's comeback. This was Luka Dončić in command. And this season the league would feel it.